I'm Kelly Rudy. On this edition of Paranet BizCast, John Torinus, Chairman of Serigraph. In an article, you said something to the effect that we always seem to play last inning heroics. What do you think that we could have done differently with Kenosha and Racine and Fond du Lac? What could we have done maybe even before that last power play trying to help them out?
What could we have done different to avoid the bubble being burst the last time around? Well, my basic contention is that most of the problem for the manufacturing world were not caused by people in the manufacturing world. They were caused by the geniuses on Wall Street and the geniuses in Washington, D.C., who let the economy get out of control and then burst and break. Take Mercury Marine. When you read the headlines in the papers, all the discussion is about, is the union at fault, is management at fault? My attitude is neither the union nor the management at Mercury Marine is at fault in the decision whether to choose Stillwater, Oklahoma for their operations or Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. The problem is the economy collapsed. That's the problem. That's if you're looking for a villain, look on Wall Street. And they got into these crazy tradings, of derivatives and exotic financial products. They over-leveraged themselves, and when they collapsed, the economy collapsed, and it had nothing to do with what was going on inside the factory in Fond du Lac or inside the factory in Stillwater. Those are pretty well-run operations. I'm a supplier, by the way, to Mercury Marine, and it's not their fault. Well, they've got to adjust because they got to deal with reality, but it wasn't their fault. Neither the union's fault at the heart of it, nor the management's fault.
So right now is the time where we really need to be looking to the future, get out of the dumps of what's been happening and think positively. What do you think is key in the improvement of the state of business and the economy right now?
Well, that's a big, wide open question, Kelly. Clearly, the Wisconsin economy is in big trouble. We've had a lot of slippage in the last 6-7 years. Our wage levels are down to, I think, 35th out of the 50 states, which I find rather alarming because we invest so much money in education in Wisconsin, both at the university level, at the technical college level, and at the K-12 level. We make huge investments in education. You'd think that our average wages would be in the top 10 instead of 35th. We're down where Alabama is. So we're in big trouble. Our job growth is below the national average. Our per capita income is falling competitively. We're losing ground to states like Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa. The economy of Wisconsin is in the hurt locker. And I don't think people have realized yet just how deep a trouble we're in. You can certainly see it over in Madison when they start counting the tax revenues. They're way off. So the state budgets go into huge deficit. They've got to borrow a lot of money. They've got to use stimulus money. So the state budget is in huge trouble because the economy is in huge trouble. So then your question is, what do we do about it? And there are a lot of smart people in this state. And I think the main thing that has to happen is we need a new economic summit pull the brightest people in Wisconsin together and come up with an economic plan that gets us back on solid ground. There were some economic summits in the early part of this decade, and they were led by the university, and they yielded some good answers, but unfortunately they weren't implemented. So we need to come back at it and come up with a better game plan.
I find it interesting that you mention that people in Minnesota and Illinois and Iowa are all doing better than Wisconsin. Typically, geographically, you would lump those together and say maybe there would be a big difference between the Midwest, say, than East Coast or West Coast. So what makes Wisconsin the bad student in all of this?
What makes Wisconsin flunk its economic test?
Yes.
Well, just as a data point, Minnesota, the average per capita income in Minnesota is $5,000 higher than it is in Wisconsin. So you can't blame the climate. because Minnesota and Wisconsin are side by side. We're at the same latitude. They get snow, we get snow. We got more lakes than they do. They wouldn't agree with that. So why are we in Iowa, which used to be way behind Wisconsin on almost any economic measure, has now caught up with Wisconsin and is indeed passing Wisconsin. So why is that? These are not easy things to figure out, but the general answer is, at least in terms of Iowa, is they have an economic strategy and they follow it, and they're pretty focused and concentrated on what they're doing. We just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's very uncollected in Wisconsin. It's almost a fire drill. Mercury's going to move out of the state perhaps, so we send in a fire drill team and try to rescue it. The same thing happens in Janesville with General Motors. You know, everybody comes running to the 3-alarm fire and tries to put the fire out, but we don't sit back and figure out a strategic game plan for the state. I'll suggest, if I were in that summit, one of the ideas that I would be injecting into the discussion would be that we need an entrepreneurial economy. And I started a couple of companies myself, and I'm now an angel investor, and I personally think that an entrepreneurial economy is probably one of the best answers for getting the state back on track. We need to start a lot of new companies and hope that some of them grow to be medium and large companies and create wealth and create jobs. So I would emphasize the entrepreneurial side of our economy. It fits a state where you have a high levels of education. It needs innovation, it needs intellectual property, and we have those kind of bright people in Wisconsin. We have highly educated people in Wisconsin. We ought to do very, very well in an economy that hinges on innovation.